Setting up a family office is a milestone for any business, and selecting a leadership is even more complex and sensitive task. And as the generations change, the thought process, the risk appetite, and financial goals also change. So in this series, we are discussing how a next gen looks into setting up a family office, and how does the family think about wealth preservation and growth. So we have on board today with us on the Camden platform today, Yash Podar from the Vikas Podar family, to understand what, as a next gen, how Yash thought about setting up his family office, and what went about there. So welcome, Yash. Great to have you on this interactive session what we have for Camden today.
Thank you, Amit, for having me.
First is, yes, when you sort of exited your flagship business and then decided to concentrate on the family office space, how did you go about setting up a family office? What was the journey, and what was the learning process during this journey, and what milestones did you set up for a family office, and how are you going to achieve them?
I remember when we first started investing, the objectives were about how do you get into the right product. I think that was the first step to actually starting our procedure of risk management. And when we set up the whole investment vehicle initially, our objective was, can we do investments that we understand, and can we avoid things that we don't understand? That was the first step, because we were also newly into the space, and there was a learning curve involved there, whether it was in financial products or whether it was understanding metrics of the financial market. And I think a key component of what we did as a first step in setting up was having an internal team in place. And by internal, I mean that we did not want to outsource any of the family office controls or wealth management to any outside entity or an outside individual. This was more of a personal decision, so I can't say that this is universally applicable to every family out there. But we were very keen on ensuring that the control of investments and analysis lies with us. While, of course, we ensured that we got into the financial networks in the last 7-8 years to make sure that the information that we get and the people we deal with is the right stuff. I think that was a big first step for us to realize that we needed the internal team, and we need to build consensus, because every decision could not be a single-handed decision or any one person taking that decision. And some of the milestones that we really set across was that how can we be an active family office? Because there can be many products and companies to invest into, but how do you be active in terms of doing due diligence? How do you really go about looking for opportunities that are becoming the next big thing? And the only real way I found the answer to that question was that the only way for me to do that for the family was to dive into the space head on, and to really understand what makes a good business. Because if we can find good businesses in not just India, but even outside the world, and if you're looking at spaces that we are understanding and also we can add value, why not marry the thought of investing along with business growth? I think that became the second phase of the family office, how you dive into it. And lastly, I think one key step that we did in this entire process was also ensuring how do you minimize mistakes. When we are dealing with family wealth, it becomes very, very difficult to take decisions that are so binary. Exciting investment opportunity. With family funds, it is difficult to see capital loss. I think this is going to be applicable not just to my generation, but also beyond my generation, that capital loss should not be ideally targeted at all. Any investment that can entail that, yeah, if you can set aside a certain portfolio for that, knowing full well that you're taking that risk, it's probably a lot more sensible. But on an overall level, it's more important for us to manage risk and to control mistakes.
So you have a CIO in place, and you have a team, and there's an investment process because you have a investment council which sort of meets and discusses uh, uh, the various products and asset allocation. Now it leads to another question: is how when it comes to decision making and asset allocation, as you said, we as a family don't want to see capital loss. That is something which is very dear to most of us families. Build build a business, and they have earned this wealth because of hard work. How does this lead to conflicts when making decisions on investment? And is your investment philosophy different from your father? And how do you merge and make a sort of holistic approach to this different thinking of different generations?
I am the acting CIO of the family office. And what that entails me to do is that, despite the designation, despite the responsibility that comes with it, we have always been a very collaborative family council in that sense. I mean, there's never been a situation where, I've come with a very exciting idea and immediately 4 people have said yes to it. In fact, I would always want that it's always one person who at least brings up a question or says, Ki, how does this happen? Or what's going on there? And so what that brings about is a debate, and at least it brings about certain mindsets. What I've actually seen, interestingly, is that the last 4 years especially, and because my father is also actively involved in all of the decision making that we do, and he even sits in on the investment calls and analysis, there is always a healthy discussion and a debate. So, but again, the question is, how do you bridge that gap? How do you reduce the information arbitrage? I think that is where the bigger gap comes. It's not so much about him liking something and me not liking something. It's mainly always about how much do we know about an opportunity. And so let's take tech investing, for example. This is something that I'm very passionate about. And somewhere philosophically, my father understands that too. The only place, again, in this example, where the gap can arise is that, he might say that this is a bit risky and might cause capital loss. So I'm not so keen on it. Whereas my mind would say to that question is, this is an opportunity. We have to be part of the next growth story. This is the gap that you just spoke about, and this comes out more often than not. But I think the way I've been able to bridge that is to first look at it and explain to the previous generation in a way that they understand it. At the end of the day, there are many stakeholders to a family office, and they all have to be satisfied mentally also. And so it is my job as a CIO not just to manage the money, but also to communicate in a way that is easily relatable, and also to bring about consensus in a democratic way, in a way that everybody is agreeable or disagreeable to it. And what happens after that is, that decision making is joint. So we never live with regrets, but yeah, we make sure that discussion takes place, and we try to operate like a fund house. We try to bring about information and due diligence. So this helps in bridging the gap.
My father always believes in real estate.
Yeah.
Land, something which is tangible. Whereas, investing in an internet company, kab kya hone wala hai, we don't know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So how do you manage and cater to each other's visions?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the family, the needs are so individual. And the simple logic that we try to use is, what is the situation of each of the members? Do they just need financial benefits from the family office? And a good way to ask that question is, what do you want your money to do for you? And rather, in our case, what should the money do for our family individually and as a group? So when it comes to individuals, sometimes the needs can only be financial, where, say, an income stream is to be created, or an appreciating asset along with income stream is to be created. That is one way to do it. Then another way to do it is probably think about what are aspirational needs of the family members. What beyond the money and beyond the financial income, is there an aspirational goal? Is there something that they want to do for self-actualization? So the way that I use the Maslow's need hierarchy theory, and that's where the self-actualization is at the highest. And based on that, the family should be able to mold its structure. Right now, this is what I spend my time on. But what if I find something else in, I don't know, the next 5 years, and I feel the need to do that? Can it satisfy that need? Can it work for me at that moment? I think that as simple as that. And for that, again, we make sure we communicate. And in order to communicate, we make sure that anytime that there is a sort of a review or a meet, we make sure that we are able to get people on, whether it's through video call or in person, to understand that, look, this is what's happening, this is where it's going, what do you need, how do you need it, when do you need it? Once those questions are answered, we are able to then backtrack and rebuild the portfolio if there is a change. Again, simple math that we do is, this is what every, I think, Marwadi family does. How much return do you need every year? And then you sort of work backwards. Then you make our asset allocation saying that, okay, if we want to do VC, if we want to do high risk assets, do I need to cross a certain threshold? Because for me, the end goal is reaching that yearly return a year. And if I decide to make a separate portfolio out of it for high risk assets, then it cannot have an interlinkage with the family office and say that, no, but this is for wealth preservation. Because now that's all risk capital, right? I mean, it has to be treated as raw material now instead of a store of value. So it's all about, I think, that perception change.
No, I think you're headed in the right direction. I think where I've been, in the family office space for so many years, and what I have seen and what advice I give, and when we speak with so many families, is I think key is asset allocation, and your return, what you expect every year. Because when you sit down with your team and your CIO, you have to be very clear that, I think you have to be very clear that what is your risk appetite. Have a clear return, as you said, and then work backwards. You have been in the family office space for like 3 to 5 years now. And so what has been, how do you sort of judge yourself? Has the family office done well in terms of meeting its expectations? And what has been the success, as well as how do you foresee your roadmap of the family office for the next maybe 2 to 3 years going forward?
Yeah, I think when it comes to some of our success metrics, I think we initially realized that is return everything? Is a portfolio achieving a certain post-tax number every year? If that's my only expectation, then well, it's tough, because we are not a fund and we are a family first. So for us, it's always about what comes with the return. So my actual way to measure success here is how was our mindset? Were we able to mentally digest that problem in the market? And so I would say that way, if I look at it, there have been situations where we have made mistakes. We have made mistakes in terms of getting excited about getting into the market, or doing something that someone else is doing, because you thought about it and you realize that, oh, why not? If they're doing it, let me also do it. So I think the first success that we have done now is that whatever we do is entirely on our decision. We are not dependent on following a roadmap that somebody else is following. Trying new things, for example, global investing. This is something that we had been toying with for the last 3 years. And in the last about 1 or 2 years, I have tried to accelerate that because, our fundamental thought process changed after COVID, is that, there are other economies out there with other interesting businesses. So why not participate? Why not look at different business models outside which don't work in India? And so even that takes a certain barrier to cross, because again, you mentally feel that, oh, your money is in a different country, in a different bank, and then it creates a sort of insecurity initially. Then you get used to it. And I think we are also we've gone much up above the curve in the last 3 years. I'm happy about that. And that's where I hope for us to build our strength, is just finding good businesses to invest into, businesses that give us a peace of mind, and businesses that are reminiscent of what my father and my family did at Ashirvad Pipes. That's eventually the goal.
Many people ask me this question, on a Camden platform, as well as, when we meet with families, is the family office needed? Because many families are yet not convinced. And what is like you have now you had a family office for 9 years, then you had a structured 3-4 years back. Now it's a proper family office. So in your opinion, it has been a good experience that you, in the hindsight, would say, yes, I'm happy that you have a proper family office, or you feel that, no, theek hai, agar nahi bhi hota, I would have managed the things what is your advice to our audience?
So the way I classify that is, even family offices, there are two types, and you all know that very well, that the first type of family office is which is created out of cash flows from a running business or an existing entity, and you're using that money and saying that, look, I want to invest this money in the markets and mujhe itna returns, I need this much returns every year. The second type of family office is like us, where we have a full exit. And so essentially the simplistic way that I follow is that if you are a full exit family, if you have absolutely come out of your entire business, I think then it is imperative to have a family office, because for you, that structure is everything. That wealth that you are managing is everything. You can't just go and find 3 managers and give it to them. I think that's a worst mistake anyone can do.
It's a very valid point and observation. And we ourselves in the Patni family, we exited Patni 100%. And that was a need where, we should have a full-fledged family office. And have the same view. So Yash, it's been great interacting with you. And I think the key takeaways which I would see from your conversation is, have a proper team, choose the leader who would be sort of de facto CIO from the family, which is important, and have a proper family council which will make the investment committee, and asset allocation, and making your return profile is very important. Risk return profile is very important. So once again, thank you very much, Yash, for coming for this quick interview and sharing your perspectives as the next gen of your family. So everyone, stay tuned with the Camden Interactive series to understand the perspectives of principals' ideas on family office leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Camden.
Be safe.